We begin with breaking news. Breaking news out of Long Beach tonight. A desperate rush by deputies to save a baby's life.
Let's go to Crystal Cruz live in the newsroom with more information on exactly what happened. Crystal.
Pat, incredible video. Deputies were flagged down at the 91 freeway in Bellflower near Lakewood Boulevard. They found a baby boy not breathing. They put the child in their squad car, then rushed to the nearest ER.
Move! 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 Move your car!
You can just hear the anxiousness in that person's voice. Deputies rushed the baby boy to nearby Long Beach Memorial Hospital and ran the child into the emergency room. We're told deputies were doing CPR on the baby while they were driving to the hospital, and then the child started breathing just as they pulled up to the ER. The mother was also seen running into the hospital. You can see the deputies running in there right now. Just incredible video. And you can see the mom right there. She's trailing, obviously trying to get to her baby boy. Now again, we're told that the child was breathing when they arrived. If we get any new information, we'll bring it to you. Live in the newsroom, I'm Crystal Cruz. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you, Crystal. Now, he allegedly dined and dashed, but now he could do some time in prison.
Paul Gonzalez faces several felonies tonight, including extortion.
And tonight, victims are reacting to the charges against him. CBS2's Rachel Kim is live in Pasadena with more on the man who has made a lot of our newscasts. Rachel.
Pat and Jeff, the women we spoke with tonight say they were left with the bill at nice restaurants here in Pasadena. They tell us they're happy that the dine-and-dash dater has been stopped in his tracks.
He ordered a salad with shrimp, filet mignon.
He ordered shrimp tacos before I arrived.
He had an appetizer, he ordered a steak.
And he says, I'm going to the bathroom, I'll be right back. And he never did.
One after another, women came forward to tell us about their experiences with the man known as the dine-and-dash dater. He's actually 45-year-old Paul Gonzalez. And prosecutors say from May of 2016 to April of this year, he went to dinner with women he met on dating apps, drank and ate fine foods, then left without paying any of the bill.
He owes every woman an apology.
Well, today, Paul Gonzalez was in court to face extortion and grand theft charges. Prosecutors say he's left 8 women with bills totaling about $1,000 from Pasadena, Long Beach, Burbank, and L.A.
I'm ecstatic. I think justice is served. I hope he gets what he deserves.
Michelle doesn't want to be identified, but her reaction was clear when she heard Gonzalez had been arrested. He left her with a bill at Smitty's in Pasadena.
Disrespectful, low-down person. How do you live with yourself? Do you not have a conscience?
I was ecstatic, very, very happy.
We got the same reaction from this woman named Hunter, who also doesn't want to be identified. She told us Gonzalez did it to her at Mercado restaurant in Pasadena.
The more I saw more women coming forth, it made me even angrier.
Gonzalez pleaded not guilty to the extortion, grand theft, and other charges. He faces up to 13 years in state prison if convicted as charged.
He doesn't have to worry about any meals now. He's going to get 3 square meals a day.
Gonzalez remains behind bars tonight. His bail set at $315,000. His next court date, September 7th. Reporting live tonight in Pasadena, Rachel Kim, CBS 2 News.
Rachel, thank you. Now to some developing news. A gunman is still loose tonight in the Gramercy Park area of South L.A. LAPD says he reportedly shot a woman in the stomach during an argument.
She was rushed to a hospital. Police blocked an area around a beauty shop looking for that suspect, but were not able to find him. A search in the South Bay tonight for a rapist. Manhattan Beach police say last night a woman arrived home on the 900 block of Valley Drive, and shortly after a man got in through the front door. Officers say he raped her, then took off. Police don't know whether he ran or drove away, but they are hoping that someone will come forward with information about the suspect.
Well, new developments in the mass shooting at a video game tournament in Florida. We have learned the suspected gunman had a history of mental illness. Court records show 24-year-old David Katz was hospitalized twice in psychiatric facilities as a teenager.
And we're told he was prescribed antipsychotics and antidepressants. Investigators say Katz opened fire after losing the tournament. Tony Montanillo was shot twice.
All I can think about is getting my phone so I can text, my family. Just let them know, that I care about them
Investigators say Katz killed 2, injured 10 more. That is before taking his own life. The head of EA Sports announced tonight the remaining Madden events have been canceled.
A young man who grew up here in the Southland was one of the 2 people killed in the attack. CBS2's Tom Waite spoke with Elijah Clayton's heartbroken grandmother tonight.
Tonight we spoke with Elijah Clayton's grandmother. She is still in shock about what happened to her grandson, trying to make sense of this tragedy, as are the people who knew him, who went to Chaminade High School here in West Hills and in Calabasas.
He's a fine person. Every day in every way.
Cynthia Morse is still trying to comprehend the loss of her grandson, Elijah Clayton. The 22-year-old was shot and killed at a video game tournament over the weekend in Florida. Cynthia saw her grandson just before he left.
Gave him a kiss, told him to travel safe, good luck, play well. He said, I will. It hasn't broken on me yet. I'm being strong for the youngest, who's 14, and you can't see me fall apart if he's not falling apart.
My name's Eli Clayton, a.k.a. True Boy.
Clayton loved football, school, and gaming. Using the nickname True Boy, he posted this video of himself on Instagram just days before he was gunned down.
He faced one touchdown.
That's Elijah on the bottom right of your screen at the tournament just seconds before he was killed. In the live stream posted by Twitch, you can hear the shots being fired.
Excuse me, not an easy out.
Elijah and another man would both lose their lives. The gunman was a contender at the gaming tournament who lost and returned with a gun.
What a waste. I think they should have had security. There's no reason, and I'm pretty sure now if once you get out of the tournament, they'll be asked to leave and not come back.
Cynthia says her grandson's 6 brothers, 3 sisters, and extended family will never forget how special Elijah was.
He was very loving, very smart, well-spoken, and genuine, very authentic.
Elijah's family, we're told, has headed to Florida. It's not clear when the funeral will be. A GoFundMe page has been launched to help pay for funeral expenses. Reporting from West Hills, I'm Tom Waite, CBS 2 News.
A stretch of Malibu Canyon Road closed for hours today after a large boulder crashed onto a car. None of the 3 people inside seriously injured, and a geologist came to that area between Francisco and Piuma just to make sure that there weren't any other loose rocks.
The Fullerton Police Department is under new leadership. CBS2 has learned Chief David Hendricks is now the subject of a criminal investigation. Sources tell us Hendricks and one of his captains, Thomas Olivares, attended a concert Friday night. Hendricks' wife was reportedly injured. Both law enforcement officers were forced to take a leave of absence. They are now assault suspects.
Not call somebody guilty unless, once everything's out there in the open. So really important that they do an investigation first and then figure out what happened.
The Irvine Police Department is conducting a probe of the incident, which purportedly happened at the 5 Points Amphitheater during a Lady Antebellum concert.
Well, the White House finally gave in to bipartisan outrage today, lowering its flag in honor of late Senator John McCain. And CBS2 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with the late details and reaction to it.
The president tried to keep it zipped. He didn't want to say anything, but that didn't work too well. It was a long and stormy day at the White House, which appeared to be spinning in chaos about what to say and what to do after the death of Senator John McCain, who passed away 2 days ago. Finally, tonight, with public anger growing, President Trump thanked McCain, whom he considered a bitter opponent, for his public service.
We very much appreciate everything that Senator McCain has done for our country, so thank you very much.
The president making his first comments of the day, speaking about the death of former Senator John McCain.
Mr. President, why won't you call John McCain a hero, sir?
But for most of the day, President Trump was mute on the subject as reporters continued to fire questions at 5 different photo ops. The Washington Post reports the president rejected a proposed White House statement on McCain's death, drafted by the White House staff. And flags at the White House, which were at half staff on Sunday night, were returned to full staff on Monday, only to be lowered again later in the afternoon when the American Legion complained about it.
I've never seen, in all my years in Washington, this kind of thing where the American Legion has to write the president and demand they lower the flag to half staff.
But President Trump, prior to his comments tonight, has over the years launched verbal assaults on the concept that McCain was a war hero.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
But McCain's farewell to life statement, read by a family spokesman, was a clear slap at President Trump.
We weaken our greatness when we hide behind walls rather than tear them down.
Now, behind the scenes tonight, the Washington Post reporting that Vice President Mike Pence and Chief of Staff John Kelly pushed the president hard to release a statement praising McCain's service to the country after his death. But the paper reports Mr. Trump resisted until it became absolutely clear he had to have something to say. Jeff, back to you.
Okay, Dave, thank you. And of course, stay with CBS2 for continuing coverage of the death of John McCain, the tributes, and his funeral. Our Tom Waite will be reporting from Phoenix starting tomorrow.
A dangerous trend. Why health officials say more and more women are using pot while they're pregnant.
That's ahead, plus this.
And a local man mauled by a bear. Still ahead, how his family says he fought to stay alive.
And
the bill is more expensive than our flight.
And a 2 on your side alert. How you could get hit with a big cell phone bill on a trip just for leaving your phone on.
Oof, and here's a look of Sky 2 flying over LA. A beautiful sight. We've got that marine layer still intact. We'll let you know if it's going to last for the week ahead.
And let's take a look at the guest tonight on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.